Okay, so today I am going to be talking about the use of storytelling in EFL, seeing as I like to write stories. That makes sense. And yeah, my name is Lauren. I'm going to talk a little bit about my background and what I do, and writing stories for our Storyscape. Why you should use storytelling in EFL, and we'll have a little bit of discussion. We'll look at some ways to use the stories, and then there's a chance to ask questions at the end. So, my background, I have been an EFL teacher, an EAP teacher for about 11 years. So EFL, the traditional sort of teaching English as a foreign language. And then later I moved into working in universities in China, teaching sort of more academic skills. So it's quite a range of different teaching that I've done in the EFL world. And yes, I have, I think you mentioned earlier that I taught in China, and I just said that. I also very early on, when I was very young, taught for a little while in Brazil and Peru. And then in more recent times, I've also been teaching in Spain for 4 years, and I've taken summer jobs in places like Italy and Germany as well. I have a TESOL Masters, a CELTA, and currently doing a very, very painful course, which is called the Delta. I'm sure some of you know of it. It's not that fun. I've been working on it all day and now I've come here. So yeah, it's pretty relentless, I would say. And basically, the way I got into writing for our Storyscape was I got stuck in the UK during lockdown. I was on holiday visiting my mum from China, and then the pandemic began. And so I was here in the UK and I had to teach online. And it had been about a year into the whole process of COVID, and we had a particularly strict lockdown over Christmas. And being with my mum and our cats, I kind of, maybe I was going a little bit crazy, I don't know. But I started to think, well, I need a project. So I started to write some ebooks for learners. I was thinking like upper intermediate to advanced, based on an idea called What If Cats Could Send Text Messages? So this is what my book looks like. There's lots of them. I'm working on them, but at the moment I'm very busy, so I haven't got around to continuing them. And I love illustrating, so I kind of just drew lots of little pictures, and they're kind of based on my 2 cats that I had and my conversations with them, really. Just to show you a little bit more of the books themselves, one of the things that I did with them was to sort of highlight key language that I thought might be unusual for people reading a reader, which I'd highlighted. So you can see here it's in pink. And then towards the end of the book, they're quite short books, I would use clues for students to kind of guess what the meaning of the words were, and sort of creative activities. So I think Rebecca saw my work and she suggested that I talk to Erin, and then, yeah, the rest is kind of history. I've just started writing stories. So what do I do exactly? I write 5 stories per each unit. I think there's 6 units of the book. And I follow a brief with set themes and tailor the content to specific grammar and lexis. And each unit builds on the last. So it gets easier. You know, at the beginning, there was only a certain amount I could do with so much text and grammar and lexis. But as time wears on, I can keep using that lexis that I've used before. So I try to repeat and recycle the key language to increase students' exposure to it, basically, and try to be very aware of this and try not to use anything that would be too strange. So it is kind of a challenge at times. But at the same time, I'm trying to make the stories fun and engaging, and I'm trying to capture details of different cultures and people from around the globe. So I've got a moment where I want you to talk and go into breakout rooms. And I've got these 3 questions. I have, why do you think it's useful to use stories in EFL? How do you think you could use stories in your classroom? And have you ever tried to? What did you do and how successful was it? So you might not be able to remember all these questions, but if you could just generally talk about why you think it might be useful then that would be great. We can then share some ideas. So is it possible to put people into groups? I don't know.
Let me do that. Sorry, it will take me one moment, but everyone, just so you know, how long do you think? Like 2 minutes?
Yeah,
5 minutes? Okay. Yeah. We'll do like 2-3 minutes and then we'll pull everyone back. So yeah, talk about that. I'm just trying to figure out. Okay, I'm going to. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, we'll start now. You should see an invitation to join your room. And for the Storyscape people, I didn't put you in rooms necessarily. But Cecilia, Eduardo, and Giannina should be there. I see Eduardo joined. Oh, Cecilia did. Cool. Awesome. Cool.
Guess we just wait.
Yeah. But the 3 attendees are in the breakout room. Oh, and like if you wanted to, well,
you can sometimes go in, can't you? But
yeah, I'll assign you to it, and if you want, you can jump in a minute to just see if you want,
I think I might stay out just because it might be a bit like.
Yeah, no, I get it. I put Hannah, Chris, and Melissa in a breakout room. I don't know why.
I think we can enjoy having a chat.
Lauren, I love your story though. Like as in, like just your experience is very interesting, and it sounds like you've had lots of adventures and been to many places around the world. So
I have, but the last 2.5 years have been quite dull. They've just been like kind of surviving, talking to my cats, trying to get, qualifications. And it's that time where, I was having a lot of fun, and now I've got to be a bit more serious about things.
Well, that's like a perfect time to do that,
Yeah.
Take advantage of the pandemic in a way.
No, but no fun.
Yeah, we'll get back there.
Yeah. I've got plans. I've got like dreams of some trips after this is all done.
Good. Yeah. Yeah, I do too.
I hope so. I hope we all have dreams.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Lauren, that was really cool hearing about, like, I'm so jealous.
What?
I want to be you. No, just like hearing about like all the places you've been, like taught in, and everything you're doing. That's really interesting.
Thank you. It's like, it never ends though. Everyone says, oh, you've been everywhere. And I'm like, I haven't been anywhere enough, like you still want to, and you get to a certain, but I sort of stay close to home because your family are not getting any younger, and you want to have kids.
Yeah. It's hard to do both, it's hard to be home and not be home, of course. And travel kind of begets more travel too. Okay, I'm going to close the rooms. Does that seem like a good? Okay. They'll end in 6 seconds.
Everyone back?
I believe. Yes, I think so.
Hello.
Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Is everyone here? Yeah, they are. If people want to put their ideas in the chat, or if anyone wants to speak, they're more than welcome to, just to get some ideas. So we could start with the first question. Why do you think it's useful to use stories in EFL, if anyone has any ideas? If you're feeling shy, type it. I'll wait a few minutes because I know it takes a bit of time to type as well.
In my case, I'll use stories to show the students to develop their minds.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so to give them like to sort of get them to learn about different cultures and different situations. No?
I think it's useful for catching the interest, because a lot of students might not have an interest in learning a new language. So if it's on a topic that they're passionate about, that can draw them in.
Yeah, I think it's really important for motivation. I remember learning Latin at school, and I think the key thing because I ended up doing classical history for my degree, and I think the key thing that motivated me when I was using Latin textbooks was that the stories were centered around Vesuvius and the eruption in Pompeii. And just from that point, starting my first year of Latin when I was maybe 12 years old, it led to me doing a degree in the topic. So, it can really, capturing imagination and creating motivation is really key, I think. Does anyone have any ideas about how you think you could use stories in your classroom? Like, how would you use them exactly? Any thoughts?
Well, I think one that I've heard is very successful and fun is to act out stories or act out scenes from a story in class, and it gets students out of their seat, and it helps with comprehending the story, and it can just be really fun.
Yeah, I think so, definitely. And if you've got like small, like younger learners, and you've got, we mentioned it earlier with props and things, like lots of children love dressing up. So that can also be really creative and fun as well. Yeah. And you can maybe then also write out the story, draw the illustrations later. So it can be expanded into so many different areas. And has anyone here ever tried to use stories in their teaching, and did they find it difficult, easy? Was it successful? Anyone? It's a bit quiet. Okay, well, don't worry too much if you don't want to, because I'm going to talk to you about some of my ideas and thoughts. I'm going to talk a little bit about theory, and I'll also talk about some things that you could do. Okay. Why do we use storytelling in EFL? First of all, they provide a holistic approach to learning a language and a meaningful context in which to learn language. Okay, so it's not just here's a list of words and it's kind of boring. Like native speakers learn their language through reading books as well, and so it's it's a natural idea to follow when you're learning a language as well. As I said earlier, they can help increase motivation for engagement. And I used the story to illustrate when I was learning Latin how important that was, and can really make learning fun. They also provide different perspectives. So it's a good way to get cultural enrichment in your classroom, especially with our Storyscape, because there's all the different countries and places that we cover from around the globe. And even me, I didn't know a lot about Trinidad, and writing the stories about Trinidad was exciting for me because I didn't know about some of the food they ate. And I think that the world is such a varied and interesting place, and it's great to kind of capture that in the imagination of a young person who's learning and finding out about the world. They ignite imagination, so they're great for young learners, especially with crafting and creating projects. And I've got a picture here. This is when I was teaching in Spain many years ago. We used the book Elmer the Elephant to teach sort of primary school students the colors and we did a lot of kind of paper mache and made displays, and the children really loved it, because who doesn't love elephants, really? So that was a great way to like bring the story to life, and there was so much you could do with it. They can encourage noticing of certain key language, which is especially good for listening and pronunciation with sounds. And again, I have a picture here from a very famous British storybook called We're Going on a Bear Hunt. And now I know like the words here like splash, splosh, splash, splosh, they're not particularly words that students are necessarily going to use in a conversation, but they get their ear listening to the sounds, and they get more familiar with the different sounds that are made in English. And they're fun, you know, saying those words, trying to say them with your own mouth and tongue, especially, you know, if you're not used to saying sounds like osh or the, you know, like that can be really, it can be quite funny for the students to practice. And it's just a well-known fact that reading helps improve a student's vocabulary. I'm writing my first essay on how important reading is for developing your vocabulary, and I can't emphasize it enough. So I wanted to talk about some ways that you could use stories. So I divided it up into the pre-reading stage, while reading, and post-reading. So you could set the theme and context. You could show the title of the story and encourage students to guess what it might be about. Predicting is a really good way to kind of lead into the story and get students to use their imagination. If they already have some vocabulary, it kind of unlocks that. We call that schema theory, where you have this like previous knowledge, and then if you access that before you do the reading, then you've got more chance of engaging with it and understanding it. You can show some images of the characters and ask questions, elicit ideas for certain situations. You know, if you have a picture of, say, I don't know, a man talking to a cat, you could be like, what's going on here? And see what kind of crazy ideas students could come up with. You could discuss the country or culture the story is set in and see what students know about it. And as I was hearing earlier, we've got maps with our Storyscape. So, you know, it's a lot of fun when you're a child to like look at the different maps and see where these places are and find out about them. When I was a kid, I used to have a globe, and I'd do this with my dad. We'd spin the globe and I'd point to a country and be like, what is this all about? And some of my favorite classes were also the classes where we learn about different countries around the world. And you can then also brainstorm and pre-teach some of the key vocabulary. You can make flashcards, for example, and play some flashcard games. One of my favorite is the game What's Missing, where you have lots of different flashcards, and then you take one away, and the students, you say what's missing, and the students have to guess what word is missing. A lot of young learners really love that game, and it's easy to do. So as I said earlier, I just sort of pre-mentioned this, like doing the pre-reading before you actually start reading the story is really important. Like I said, it activates schemata, which is part of schema theory. And we call this top-down processing, where you're using your knowledge to you know, build on that and approach the text. And then we also have this other idea called bottom-up processing, which kind of comes with pre-teaching some of the key vocabulary, where we're looking at more the linguistic features and the words themselves. So when we're reading, we're kind of combining the two processes, and that's what makes us successful readers. So students need help with both of these areas. And so reading gets them practicing these skills. During reading, what can you do during reading? So you can make the reading experience as active as possible. Evidence suggests that learner involvement in a story makes all the difference. And this comes from some research that I did prior to this presentation. So you can try and vary your voice, try to be dramatic and silly with your body language. You can try to use any total physical response activities. If you don't know what total physical response is, it's sort of like, you know, a bit like Simon Says, stand up, sit down, clap your hands. This helps to keep young learners engaged and not sort of drifting off looking out the window. And it's a lot of fun. You could also pause at certain parts and ask students to predict what happens next. So even though we did prediction at the beginning and we sort of said, like, what's this story going to be about? It's also very important to keep predicting throughout the story, to keep the learner engaged, but also to check their comprehension as they go. This is very important. You could do something, it's one of my favorite activities, and it's great for teachers because you can sit back for a moment and not be the one at the front of the classroom talking, and running dictation. I don't know if anyone's done this before, but it's where you stick different parts of the text around the classroom. You have students are put into pairs, and one student has to be the writer, and the other student has to run and read the text, run back and tell the person who's writing what they have read, and then they write it down. So it's very good for burning off a lot of energy if students have been sitting for a long time and they love it. It's really fun. It's good for writing skills, it's good for reading skills, and it's also good for listening and speaking skills. So it's a really good activity that encompasses everything. And I used to use it all the time when I had, even with adults, I use it because it's just fun. You can also do a jigsaw reading. So you can put students into groups and they can read different parts of the stories and answer questions, and then come back and talk to each other and kind of compare what part of the story that they learned about, and sort of piece together the story together. So this again incorporates reading, but also speaking practice. And then after you've done the reading, there's a whole range of activities that can come that you could try. So you could do more controlled practice, like gap fills. I think there are probably some gap fills on our Storyscape, I'd imagine. Comprehension checking questions. You can put images in order to retell the story. You could create your own storyboard with, if someone in your class is particularly gifted at drawing, that can be really fun. And then you can also do freer activities. So students could write a play. As Erin was saying, they could act out certain scenes, or they could even write an additional scene. Like if you've only told them half the story, maybe they have to write what happens next. Or they could rewrite the ending if they don't like the ending. You could write a letter to one of the characters. You could create a display board, or you could even try and write a similar story in pairs or in groups. So those are some ideas. I just wanted to show you one of our stories. So I've said in a minute, you will see one of our stories. I just want to talk about some things you could do with this story. So one thing you could do is pre-teach some of the vocabulary using total physical response. Now, I guess with these ones, it might be a little bit difficult. I don't know, you could try and use your body to create a bridge. I've seen some really inventive things that kids do sometimes. I saw one kid, a friend, she sent me a video of a kid spinning around he was acting like he was a kebab in a kebab shop. So he was just spinning around, and then the other kid was sort of saying, would you like some kebab? So, it's amazing what you can do with your bodies. You could easily motion a train, ride a bike. So, you could definitely be creative and use your imagination. And then you could read the story together. So here I have a story that I've written. Could read it. I don't know if you guys do you want me to read it? Or we probably don't have enough time to read it all. But this is about a cat that takes a train to go to a supermarket every day to get a fish. So you could, take in turns to read this. Different people could say different things. Maybe you could act this out. And then you could get students to retell the story using pictures as prompts. So here we have some of the pictures from the story, and students could see what they could remember from the story. So maybe, in this situation, the cat is taking the train, where's he going? They could then say something like, the cat has met a man in the supermarket to ask for some fish. And then maybe something simple like the cat then goes home. I don't know. Thank you. Someone said it's a cute cat. It is a very cute, it does look like a cute cat. That's not my cat. My cat's black. Okay, and that's all really. There's some references here for some of the theory that I incorporated into the workshop. And if anyone has any questions, you're more than welcome to pop them in the chat or ask me now.
There's so much you can do with a story. I'm just like, wow. I mean, you offered so many different options, and I feel like, you know, like using stories in class would never get boring. You know, it's like you can do so much, and actually to address someone's question from Melissa's, I think a lot of those options would work really well with higher levels, and you know, can really work with any level and be differentiated even within one class if you have different levels in one class. So
I use some of these things, you know, at university level. So like the running dictation, like I said, I use that with my Chinese students who are 21, you know, running around the classroom. And, you know, they want to do that sometimes, you know, it's a break from some of the serious exam prep that they have to do, you know. So throwing in a story when you're doing something a bit more serious can always like lighten the mood, and it can be like the kind of relaxing part of the class.